If you're one of the people who are surprised by this big downward move, then you are in the right place and you are watching the right video. And thank you so much for clicking on my video. But on this channel, we do a little something called trade like water. And maybe some people in the comments could tell others who are part of this community can tell people how they are trading like water and how it has helped them as an overall trading with their strategies. But right here, we're going to get into some technical analysis for the SPY Qs, Apple, Tesla, Amazon, Nvidia, AMD, and Meta going forward. And yes, we are going to be checking on Amazon and AMD with those big earnings, especially when we get a big flush like this. We have to be open to both scenarios, and maybe the next move is going to be to the downside, but the move after that might very well surprise you. And we're going to talk about that today. Let's get into it. We're going to do some technical analysis. We're going to be looking at the daily scale here for the SPY first. We're going to do a full breakdown of the SPY today because we're seeing some dramatic price action, right? We're seeing the rejection of the MACD down here. But first of all, we need to get those drawings up. Boom, there's all our drawings. Now it's really colorful and confusing. So now we can talk about these things. Coming down, we were just mentioning, right, on the daily scale, looks like a flag to me. And when we go into the shorter time frames, we're going to talk more about how we are trading like water and why we should not have been trapped all the way up here. There were signals down in this move that told you on the way down, hey, let's sell in this area. There were signals up here telling you, hey, there is some weakness to be had, and we're entering the first sell zone. So that's exactly what's happened here. We came into the first sell zone. This is where you would expect some kind of pullback, but this might be a little bit more dramatic than a pullback, and we're going to talk about that. The big thing on the daily, though, you're rejecting the crossing of the MACD. You're rejecting and facing back down on the RSI. So downside looks like there is some potential there, and we're going to go into those shorter time frames. Let's do the daily sides taken care of now. For the daily, actually, before we get away from this, I just wanted to point out that I really think that this is going to play out exactly how we've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. Maybe we see some kind of pop up to the sell zone, and then that starts to sell off. Everything that we've talked about is playing out in front of us, and now we could see that pull down to lower levels. The thing about this is, you notice the weekly expected move. This is all the options market has priced in for the entire week, and we very well could get outside of that and use that as rejection and see some kind of crash. I don't want to take that off the table. If we're trading like water, that means we are open to all scenarios, and we just adapt to the price action that is happening in front of us. We just have to move around those rocks. And because we have earnings, because we have a bunch of data this week, we have a lot of rocks in our stream. So this week, we really have to be on our toes. Now, everyone else is thinking this is going to crash into oblivion while we're mentioning the other scenario. And this is the other scenario you can pay attention to. What if we actually come down to this level or come down to the daily expected move tomorrow, and then we see this thing bounce? We're actually thinking that we're going to see some kind of bear trap down here right after this bull trap. We're going to get a bear trap down here, and we actually might see some positivity before we get that sturdy lower high, or even maybe we start to build up to an all-time high. Yes, we are open to that on this channel because we're open to all scenarios as we're trading like water. Let's go into the shorter time frames and get you those daily expected moves. And remember, the daily expected moves are in red here. We're going to update these monthly expected moves tonight on Patreon. On Patreon, we give these expected moves for every single stock that we cover on this channel and a couple others. And the monthly move is going to change, but I wanted to show you guys how we're landing right near it. That's pretty good for the SPY. That's pretty good. This selling came in like, you know, we were above it until the last few hours, right? We're above it until the last day of the month here. So we're seeing that build back up, try to get it. That's pretty good in that area. You're not seeing a 2 standard deviation move outside of the monthly expected move at this point, but this is a good chart to pay attention to. And first, we got to give you those daily expected moves. Okay, daily expected move to the upside, 507.76 and 496.20 to the downside for the SPY. And this is all the options market has priced in for tomorrow. So remember, if we get out excited and get outside of this with some selling, 68% chance we land back in that zone. And the thing about landing, if we go out of these two lines here, this purple line and this red line, well, this is your weekly, this is your daily. So you have a 68% chance not only to get right here, but you actually have a 68% chance by Friday to at least land back in this zone. And I would very much so keep that in mind tomorrow, as we could see some selling maybe going on in the morning. But does Jerome Powell give us a little cookie? We'll have to talk about that. And we're actually going to be live tomorrow in the morning and for the Jerome Powell speech. So if you want to join us and watch Jerome Powell with us and tell us your commentary, tell us what you think about what he is saying live, that would be awesome. And I'm going to react to you guys, obviously, and react to Jerome Powell. Now, what was the signal we have been paying attention to for a couple days now? We've seen some buying up, exactly what we expect, but we're in this flagging pattern, and we just noticed there is some subtle divergence here. We're going to show you that on the 30-minute. But right here, around this bar right here, you really should be out of this position at this point. So any level below pretty much 505, you should have been saying, hey, downside is likely. This is how I would get screwed out of my calls, right? So we talk about that a lot live, how paying attention to how a trade can go against you will really help you out as a trader. And this bar right here is telling you, hey, I just crossed over on this MACD right by negative territory, which means watch out, because this could very well just be some kind of dead cat bounce to continue a negative trend. Now, what are we looking for on the 2-hour scale? I really think that this could happen where we do see that dramatic selling come in, but I'm paying attention when that 2-hour curls back up. So first of all, if we're going to see that selling not really continue for too long, maybe we just hit the daily expected move and then we start to curl up from there. Well, I can pay attention to this MACD, see if that's curling up into positive territory. But something that I'm really leaning towards is creating a very strong base. And what would a strong base look like? It would look like a double bottom, or even cutting that just a little bit and creating some kind of divergence down here on a 2-hour scale. A lot of 2-hour divergences, they do like to roll up when they are to the downside. They like to roll up that daily MACD. So that's why we pay attention to it on this channel, and we're trading like water out there. So at this point, if this 2-hour rolls up, you should take no more downside, because you're actually in positive territory still. Keeping that in mind, it looks like the direction is good here. I should put a big thumbs up and thank you guys for subscribing and liking, and I hope you found this information helpful and you guys were able to make some money with this information today, because that is a big downward move. And we were talking all day about how we're piling up in here and soon we're going to experience some kind of drop. And guess what? That drop is pretty significant at this point, and now we can see that downside hold. Now we have to see if it's going to base out at any moment. I'm leaning towards some kind of divergence at these lows. Now, I do want to talk about the 30-minute here, just showing you guys exactly what we were seeing. We see the divergence at this level. We see the flatness of the MACD a little bit down there. And then we see a little bit down here on the RSI, telling you there is weakness here, and we can see some kind of trend reversal or some kind of pullback. And right now it's looking like a trend reversal as we are going into, what is this, negative territory. So if you want to learn all the stuff we're talking about here, how to really trade like water, the best thing to do is to take the course, which is $149 for the next only 4 days. And you can get that down in the description right there. Now, as we head lower, what would I want to pay attention to, even with my 2-hour shorts, right? What would I want to pay attention to? Well, if that 30 minutes able to curl back up, because notice it's not that far from positive territory. So if it does curl up and go positive, well, we can start moving back up with the price action, right? Positive territory, positive trend. But you're kind of sitting at that center line. So if we do drop off more significantly, that's when I'll be paying attention to my 2-hour charts. Okay, so I'm not saying that we're not going to experience more downside here. I'm just saying this is playing out exactly how we expected. That's why I should put a big thumbs up on this. But the 2-hour could create some kind of divergence, and that is really what I am leaning towards at these lows for a strong bounce, for a strong base for the real bounce that's coming. Now the Q is similar thing, but this one here did not necessarily have the divergence at the same time on the MACD, and we talk about that in the course, but as of right now, not at the same time, so this could be some kind of pullback, and we might go through a scenario here where the Qs are actually dropping down and then able to base out a little higher up while the SPY is testing that previous low. So we'll pay attention to that when we're live tomorrow. Make sure if you're new here, I don't even want you to take the course if you're new here. I want you to show up live, ask questions about it, make sure it's a good fit for you. And at this point, remember that these yellow lines here, we're going to update tonight on Patreon. So become a Patreon member, you'll get those updated monthly ranges. And look at this, we land spot on, pretty much right on it. So that's very, very cool. Now, the thing with this here is we need some places to for expected moves. We need to know where things are priced in to go tomorrow. And for tomorrow, you have 431.21 to the upside for the Qs, and you have 417.97 to the downside. So this is an area where I would be really paying attention for a bounce. Remember, if you get outside of this, you have a 68% chance to land here, but you also have that 68% chance to close on Friday above this level. So just pay attention to that when you are seeing dramatic selling. If that happens on a Wednesday, you still have a lot of time to buy back up. If we are going to see something more dramatic, if we are going to see a full-out crash, you are most likely going to see a clean break of these levels and then use this area right in here as some kind of sell zone, as some kind of resistance. And then we're going to see this type of thing happen, and then we're just going to continue that negative trend. Now, there are bounces in those negative trends, but we just have to watch that 30-minute curl up to the center line and curl down if that crash is happening. And we're going to get into that when we go into the VIX at the end of towards the end of this video. When should you have been out of this position? Well, it's kind of difficult with the Qs because it was on the final bar here. it was like pretty much on the last bar. So you really had to be paying attention to two things at once. It's very, very good to be adaptable and be aware of multiple things happening at the same time, because the SPY was telling you right here, hey, do not take any more upside because I'm crossing down and I'm right by that center line. The Q's doing that a little bit later. So you could have saved yourself from a lot of turmoil here, another 3 points down, if you would have just paid attention to two things at once. And I know that's difficult to do, but you have to be very versatile as a trader, very versatile in a market like this with probably a couple different strategies, because not everything's going to work when you do a strategy on the way up. It's not going to work the same on the way down. And usually on the way down, you have to be a lot quicker. So you need those skills. So make sure to look for, if you want to learn this stuff, just look for that course down in the description, $149 for the next 4 days. Now, this is what they have priced in. Okay, this is what they have priced in. So that just tells us, hey, this is where I expect to land by the end of the day. So if we do see that rapid move out, I'd be looking for that to buy back up. And guess what? If we make that move all the way down here, maybe we touch into our gray zone. This is a support level at this point, and we do have support down at this level. We've bought back from that level pretty aggressively. So we can see this base out. But I've been saying this for a few days now. This does not look like a strong enough base to like go test the 438.28 we've been talking about way up here. This is where we would get bullish if we start to close up in this area, and we're not going to get bullish until that really happens. But as of right now, we're seeing that downside. We're pointing directly towards negative territory, and it looks like we're going to head lower. If we can get a strong base here and this move actually happens, that would be a great entry at this point, and we're going to talk a lot about that live. So just be aware that you could see dramatic selling. I just don't want you to get FOMO'd into the downside and then see that V shape with this base down here. So we're still going to pay attention if this actually confirms. We're not just saying, hey, touches this, oh, calls, and now it goes. No, you want to make sure that that is confirming going back into positive territory. And you'll see this on the MACD right here. That would be really close to positive territory, solid angle up, and you'd get that on the R side at the same time. So being aware of that, I just want to, point out we have to be open to multiple scenarios. And right now we are crashing down below all the moving averages. Okay, so there is a chance that we still need to go test a 200 or something like that. So still pay attention to downside. But if that 2-hour divergence forms, you're going to have an edge on the entire market. Apple, I should put another thumbs up and thank you guys for subscribing and hoping that this information is helpful, because guess what? We went to that sell zone and this is what we were talking about live. We're in the sell zone. Now we can sell off. And overall with Apple, it still looks good before earnings with this divergence here. But now you have the potential to maybe see some kind of drop. I don't think this will make a lower low at this point. I think we're just going to pay attention to a 2-hour. We'll go into that. But I wanted to show you the last time you had a divergence this steep, right? And that would be this triple divergence back here when we were calling the bottom in October, right? So if we kind of like zoom out on this a little bit and just show you guys what happened after that divergence played out, well, we saw rapid upside for Apple, and that very well could happen again. Now, I'm not banking on that happening. I'm still aware of the downside opportunity. I'm just saying that if there is a chance that this could go higher, this is the setup you want to see. And we're seeing a relatively similar setup in the same price point at this point. So even though we're seeing this curl down, just know that we could be getting some kind of fake out before earnings. And how we can see if that's a fake out, well, we pay attention to the 2-hour. We trade like water, and that hasn't even crossed over, and we're seeing that selling. But the RSI is below the center line, so you think the direction would be down for now. But if we expect the direction to be down for now, paying attention to my weekly expected moves for Apple over on Patreon, this will pull down towards that center line. But what if this does not fully go down and we actually curl back up? That would curl back up into positive territory. So I'm just stating tomorrow, be very diligent on watching if there's any buying up in this area. Now, the only problem with all of these technicals that we're talking about for Apple, you got earnings coming up. You have earnings coming up on Thursday after hours, so just pay attention, because this can take the technicals completely out of the discussion and just be a 50-50 flip. And we say that a lot, and we say we said this live, it's better to most likely dedicate yourself during an earnings week with some big earnings moves priced in, to sit back and just learn from the experience. I've had some of my worst losses because I tried to play earnings, and I do not play around them anymore. I trade before them and after them, and I kind of sit there and just watch the craziness when it's happening live. So when we go over Amazon and AMD, I am not in either of those stocks right now, but Apple here doing exactly what we said. Get up to this sell zone. Happened a little quicker than we expected, but get up to the sell zone and then start to back off. And now we have to see if that MACD can curl back up into positive territory after some, major selling coming in. Tesla already had its earnings and experienced a massive move. And what was the signal we were paying attention to on the daily scale for Tesla? A triple divergence. We had a triple divergence. It looked very similar to Apple at that bottoming in October. Look at that triple divergence, able to get above the center line, able to go positive at this point. Big, big move. Do not want to fight against daily momentum. Even though we see some weakness in here, right? We mentioned this a lot. Do not fight against that daily momentum. If that thing starts to go positive, well, you're going to see rapid moves up. And look at that. Rapid move up. So there was no point in shorting anything like this because the daily momentum can take over down here on the MACD and RSI. So I wanted to point that out first. We were able to get back above 180.92. That's huge. The only problem with this move so far is we're outside of the weekly range and we're well outside of it still. And if I wanted to get into this move, what would I be doing? Well, I'd be going into my 30-minute. I'd see us get close to the center line and I'd see us curl up into positive territory. So you'll notice here that yes, Tesla is selling off and you have that opportunity, 68% chance to land back in that weekly expected move, which you can get over on Patreon. But we're looking for if this 30-minute can curl up at any time. We're looking for that 30-minute to curl up into positive territory. If we are going to see a more dramatic pullback, then we'll be looking for the 2-hour. The reason we're looking for pullbacks in this is because you notice that the MACD is up in higher levels. It's not looking like Apple or the overall stock market, the SPY, and that's right next to it. It's a little higher up. So what can happen from here? Well, we could test that topside weekly expected move and curl back up. We could see some selling to fill this gap and then just curl back up by end of week, and then maybe more positivity comes in. The overall statement here that we've been making for a while now is, sure, we're going to experience some pullback at some time. We're not fighting against this momentum. And as this rises up, we need a point to pay attention to, and now we can get up towards this zone. So I have this zone up here that I think Tesla is going to get to 211.92 to 205.72. I think it could get there, but I believe that move most likely happens over the next few weeks. Now, if we do just see that sudden crash happen, this most likely won't happen. We're just going to see this 2-hour go negative, and we're going to start that negative trend again. Since we were out of it for a brief moment, we can start that negative trend again. But until that happens, we have to say, hey, this MACD can curl up at any time with some positivity, and we do have multiple events going on tomorrow: data, earnings, and Jerome Powell talking, so Fed interest rate decision, all that stuff. So we have to pay attention to those rocks, figure out which way the stream is going, and not end up in the sewer, go where the meadow is. Amazon just had its earnings, and it looks like a good print so far, right? Good print so far, good news as far as it goes, and we don't necessarily even pay attention to the numbers because it seems like everyone's releasing some kind of information with the numbers, and it doesn't really matter if they're red and green, just if the information's good. So paying attention to this, we'll look at the news headlines tomorrow for Amazon, but as of right now, we would have liked structure here. And we talked about this, right? We talked about this level right here and creating some kind of head and shoulders in this area, and that very well could be playing out now with this dip down today. Right? This technically could be a right shoulder at that point, even with this just one bar. And now we're seeing those buyers step in. It's an area to grab liquidity at this point. So we did come to lower levels. It looked like that 2-hour MACD was going to curl over into negative territory. A lot of people were probably baited into taking this down. And guess what? Earnings, 50-50 flip, it just turns right back around. That's why you don't trade around earnings. But I did want to show you guys this on a 30-minute chart. Wanted to show you guys Amazon on a 30-minute chart because the 2-hour sure might have been saying, hey, this could curl down in negative territory, but it didn't give you that red impression on the histogram. Now, we did get excited up to the upside, but we see that pull back. Now we're getting positivity. If we can break through these levels here, hey, you're going to continue that positive trend. Why? Look where the MACD is. It's right by that center line, which just tells you this was really a 50-50 flip on the 30-minute as far as earnings goes. And now we can see that curl up and go positive, and then that positive trend can continue over time. So pay attention to that. We'll look out for any divergences, but most likely, if this is seen as good news, we're going to see that move up, see that keep curling down and curling back up into positive territory and able to ride this thing all the way up. So Amazon getting some good news here with some interesting structure, not the best structure here as far as the look of it, but you still do technically have a left ahead and a right shoulder, and now that's going to play out. If we can break through this high and confirm that next move higher by crossing on this MACD, looks like there's upside for Amazon. Since we're on the 30-minute, we might as well look at NVIDIA. And NVIDIA, we were paying attention to this live. We were saying, hey, we're moving sideways. Okay, we're moving sideways. Now, we did point out a little 15-minute divergence here. So congratulations if you were able to take that, because it looks like the direction is down from here as of right now. Now, the first thing we were paying attention to was the 30-minute, because guess what? This is a good move. It's in positive territory. You're by the center line. So therefore, if you curl up, you can see that positivity come in for the next leg higher. The only problem here is you've been going up for a little while now. The 2-hour was approaching overbought territory, and therefore you would say, hey, a pullback is most likely, and we haven't gotten that curl up yet. So if this 2-hour actually rolls negative, we could see deeper prices, but right now I think we are leaning towards this right here, some kind of touch of this gray zone. When you do break through resistance levels, sometimes you like to go retest them before the next leg higher. So pay attention to the 2-hour. I'm not saying NVIDIA's dead here. It still has earnings later on this month, according to, in May. So this could just curl down to the center line and curl right back up. We could just see this curl down, maybe a dramatic move down and just curl back up into positive territory, and boom, maybe that's the moment that NVIDIA actually makes a move and tries to hit 1,000 over the next few weeks. And the other reason that I'm saying that tomorrow could just be a brief pullback. I know we're rejecting the cross of the MACD on the daily scale for the SPY and the Qs, but NVIDIA actually confirming that as of today, even with that red bar, still confirming that upside. So if this is brief and we're able to move up, you'll notice what would be the next thing. Well, if this MACD gets any higher, we're going into positive territory, and that's really when things start to escalate. If you go back and you look at a lot of charts, you'll notice that 30 minutes, 2 hours when they roll over, and then once they get into negative territory, a bigger downside or upside move usually happens when they curl into negative or positive territory. It's once they cross that center line that you really start to see that price action develop. Now, NVIDIA here, I just want to point out, if you're going to see dramatic downside, well, what are you going to see? Well, you're going to see this daily start to roll over on the MACD again, and this was just some kind of trap. And if it is a trap and it's that dramatic for NVIDIA, that's going to be a pretty big trap, and that will really weigh down the SPY and the Qs. AMD, even though we were seeing this flagging and we did see some 30-minute divergences in here that we were going to talk about, we do not play around with earnings, right? Especially when you get this crossing up of the MACD. If you're short here, you're kind of lucky because first of all, this was 50-50 on the earnings, and you're fighting against daily momentum. So if we can base out from here, what would we pay attention to? Still our 2-hour. Now, this is right next to negative territory, so AMD can get some pretty good weakness here, and then we'll show you why the 2-hour can cross based on the 30-minute. But as of right now, the 2-hour curling down hasn't crossed on the MACD. That's probably going to happen in the morning. What could happen from there? Well, divergence. Okay, so this is where I will really be playing with my expected moves for AMD. AMD actually might be a risk to reward standpoint buy at this point. So if you look at the weekly ranges and it's down towards here in the halfway through the week, you have that 68% chance to bounce. And what if we create a divergence behind that? And that likes to turn up that daily MACD, and it's already turned up. So we actually could be seeing some kind of trap out of AMD, but AMD's beaten us up for a long. It's been very, very negative for a while. This is the first okay bounce, but it looks like a dead cat now because you're just rolling over, continuing that negative trend down into negative territory. Now, how did we see the weakness coming? Well, we just noticed some subtle divergences, right, on the 30-minute and the 15-minute. Some subtle divergences up here that can really tell you, hey, momentum is dying with some bad news. We can see a dramatic move. And guess what? Bad news, dramatic move. We're down 6% in the first, hour and a half after hours here. So we can see a downward move here. We can start to go negative on this MACD. Now the 2-hour can roll over, and this was just a flag to head to lower levels. And we're just going to watch out for any kind of divergences that are created down here for AMD. Now, what is Meta doing with this info? We got asked about this live, and what we were saying, well, when you see a big dramatic move, look for this MACD to get close to the center line. We said that right when that move happened. We said, now, look at that. It's getting towards that center line. You can see the next move down. Now, is that move pretty brief because its weekly expected move is somewhere down in this area? Okay, so this is all the options market's pricing in for Meta, and if you make a move like this and you create some kind of divergence, this might be brief and you could see that buy back up. So why is 30-minute divergence important? It really likes to curl up the 2-hour. So let's look how the 2-hour looks. It looks pretty beat up. It's very, very deep into negative territory. So if this is going to make a full recovery, first of all, we're going to have to take 453.08 to the upside. We're going to have to retake this level right here to really get bullish again. And even from there, you have a lot of work to do to go positive with this 2-hour, and you got to be worried about some kind of rollover. So I'm not saying you can't take a play on a 30-minute and expect some kind of bounce. I would just say make sure that bounce is taking back 453.08 and then using that as support to head higher again. That's going to be very, very important for Meta. It's been beat up since the earnings, but it looks like we could see a positive move. I would just be weary if that 2 hour starts to curl up towards the center line, cross back down. You're going to continue that negative trend and most likely see lower prices for Meta. Now, something that could have tipped you off to the downside is the difference between the SPY and TLT. Okay, TLT actually dropping down to lower levels here. Now, we know that means that the yields are climbing again, and we do get some data. We do get some Fed interest rate. We do get Jerome Powell talking. So this stuff is going to move tomorrow, but which direction will it go? As of right now, you're right by that center line. So if we want that positivity, gonna have to curl up into positive territory. We'll have to see how that data comes out in the morning. Looks like it could be kind of bad, but as of right now, we're going down into negative territory. I just wanted to point out how TLT was gapping lower today and never even tried to come up back to the high. That just tells me, hey, if I was paying attention to this, this is a good sign that there is weakness here and the smart money is selling while the dumb money is trying to keep the SPY up at higher levels. So that is something to pay attention to. And remember, we were looking at the dollar as well on a 4 hour. This thing was able to curl up into positive territory with the divergence. We mentioned this divergence before it even happened, right? We mentioned it when it did form. We mentioned it again when it confirmed. Double bottom down here with the closing bars. Now we can see, boom, a big move up, and we did break through at this point. So it looks like some upside is coming for the dollar. Will that be brief? We'll have to pay attention if this daily MACD is able to curl back up. Maybe it is brief and we get a pop higher and then that's able to fade and we actually have a little daily divergence down here on the RSI and MACD at the same time. So I'm not saying the dollar can't push higher. Usually when the stock market's going down, the dollar's going up, right? But I'm saying we could pay attention to some kind of divergence if that wants to confirm. Maybe we do actually get that bounce. So pay attention to the dollar if we're seeing those 2 hour divergences, because that will really be another confirmation that we're going to get some kind of bounce. And the volatility going forward, this thing starting to scream higher. Well, what could happen here? I think a lower high is very possible. Now, what were we paying attention to? 2 hour divergence, right? These 2 hour divergences down here telling us, hey, volatility kind of wants to come back in. And the important part with volatility is this was happening at the same time we were seeing that 30-minute divergence on the SPY, which is when you really want to pay attention to the signal. Not necessarily when volatility just has it by itself, but when the SPY looks like it's about to curl over on a 2 hour and you have this divergence down here on the VIX. That's a good sign that volatility is going to spike up. What are we paying attention to with volatility tomorrow? We're paying attention to some kind of pop, but what if that pop leads to a lower high at that point and we actually see this MACD curl back down and go negative? That would be another confirmation that we are going to see some kind of bounce in the market, and then we'll pay attention to this price action to see if that bounce is going to last for some time or if we're creating some divergences at the same time as the SPY. So this is really what I'm leaning towards. Remember that we've been talking about the VIX for a while now, for a few weeks actually, telling you, hey, we are seeing that upward move we were expecting in the VIX, but now the volatility looks like it wants to go down. So where could it go down to? We were mentioning all of this back up here. We could go down towards 15, right? 15 was the level we're paying attention to, 1504 to be exact on my other charts, but 1504 what I was paying attention to, and now we're dropping down. Why? We're testing that 200 and the 50. So one crash signal that is proving here is if we see that confirm a bar, a strong green bar here for volatility, this 50 will be spiking above the 200 here on these moving averages, which is a huge crash signal. So crash is on for this week, and I would highly suggest, even if we see those 2 hour divergences, to hedge on your way to the upside or downside here. You really want to have at least a hedge in place if you're trying to play any upside in the market, because these are crossing and that is not a good sign. Now remember, these have to remain crossed and we have to use it as support to really get that crash going. So if we do see some kind of pop, I'm expecting this to drop off down towards maybe even 1212, but the level we were mainly paying attention to, that level of 13, right in this, oh, that was terrible, but right in this area right here, 13 looks pretty good. So if we get some pop in volatility, see that drop off for some time, we could get a bullish move. But this, if this starts to turn up down in this area, that's where I'm leaning towards that lower high. Or if we just see some kind of ballistic move, maybe we even get a divergence at the top here to help us out. So as of right now, we were calling for a lot of traps in March. We were right about that. In April, we were calling for some kind of top, whether it is for a correction or maybe even a crash. And we were able to get that right too. So now let's see what we get going into, it's gonna be May. So the main takeaway here is we went into that sell zone for the SPY and we noticed the 30-minute divergences and we saw the behavior of the 2-hour, and it looked like we needed a sturdier base to see a better bounce. And I think that very well could be coming. So what we want to pay attention to going forward is if we are not confirming that divergence, we very well might be getting that crash that we're talking about. So we very well could have some kind of crash on the horizon with that 50 crossing the 200 on volatility. But I believe still we have the opportunity to make a more sturdy bounce with a sturdier base. All right, so overall, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you're trading like water out there. Good luck with your trades the rest of the week, and I will be live tomorrow for both in the morning and for when Jerome Powell talks. So come join us, ask questions about the course if you're new here. Remember, that is only $149 for the next 4 days. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great night. Peace.